Good evening, dear Mr. Sahgal, dear Rotarians and Rotarans. I'm delighted and honored to introduce you to Mr. Bittu Sahgal as our first guest speaker in this new Rotary year. Mr. Sahgal is a celebrated wildlife photographer and environmental activist, a prolific writer, and the founder of Sanctuary Nature Foundation, an Indian non-profit conservation organization that focuses on environmental policy, advocacy, science, on-ground support, and habitat management. As the founder and editor of Sanctuary Cub, India's oldest and only wildlife magazine for children, Mr. Sahgal has been widely involved in several wildlife projects. He has produced 30 wildlife documentaries and led national and international environmental campaigns. Mr. Sahgal has served on a range of government and non-government organizations, boards and committees for 30 years. A visionary, a leader, a policy maker, a speaker, a writer. His accomplishments cannot be done justice to by me. So without further ado, I invite Mr. Bittu Sahgal to address our group today. Mr. Sahgal, sir, over to you.
Thank you.
We would like to play that video you sent us, Mr. Sahgal. Would you like?
That would be wonderful. It sets the tone. If you can do that easily,
I'll share it. I'll present it. I'll present it. Yeah, I'll present it.
Increase the volume.
I can't hear anything at all.
Yeah.
No, the
Can't hear.
Yeah.
I'm here.
If there's a problem, we can just skip it.
No, I think so. I can hear. I don't know that you're not able to hear. There is no voice as of now.
No,
Now can you hear?
There's a soundtrack, but listen, I know how valuable the Rotarian's time is. So if it's not working, please, we can just skip it. Because without the sound, it's just a bunch of pictures.
Yeah, I think we should stop. We'll figure this
I think
out.
we can skip it.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful clip. I had seen it.
Yeah.
Very well made.
We have the link. I'll circulate it. We'll all go back and see it.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, post fact over,
And I even asked my granddaughter to view it, and she was thrilled.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. They are the reason that we breathe.
Absolutely.
I think we can switch off the
Vimal,
film now
please
and
cut it.
Vimal, you can switch off the video, please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
whenever you feel that I'm okay to go, I can start.
Yeah, you're okay to go now, Bittuji.
Okay, the first thing that I want to say is that thank you very much. I am very honored. I have been addressing Rotary Club meetings for the last 30 years, 40 years. And each time I come away with this, service before self is not just a motto. Service before self is actually a survival strategy. And when we talk in terms of, the economy, which actually determines almost all our actions today, there is one thing I'd like to communicate, and I'd like your help as members of the Rotary on the basis of service before self, that the economy is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. Now, when I say a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment, there could be no better way for nature to send us a message than the pandemic that we are seeing now. This is not an accidental thing that happened. This is not something that was not anticipated. I mean, a certain number of people have seen that if species that have evolved with vectors and particularly viruses are left to their own devices, then generally speaking, they will not cross the barriers. Today, the general perception is, and I understand we have people here with us today who are in charge of the COVID task force in Pune. So, in particular, there are two things that I'd like to convey about the pandemic, about how to avoid the next pandemic, and what kind of world are we going to live in post pandemic. To start with, whether it was Ebola or MERS or SARS, the fact is that these viruses have lived on Earth for a very long time, and it was only when they were disturbed that they came out. This disturbance doesn't only mean Wuhan in China, where you eat a bat. These are wet markets that actually exist in India as well. But almost as important as the issue of eating wild foods with the viruses that they bring is the fact that ecosystems, when they are damaged, let's take the Western Ghats. I mean, you're in the northern Western Ghats. Pune is situated in such a beautiful, beautiful location. But if the Western Ghats are destroyed, then the animals which have lived there and nowhere else, animals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, they start coming into where we are. And the truth is that the doctors amongst you, I'm not an endocrinologist and I'm not somebody who understands medicine very well, but I will say this, that if you have a strong immune system, the chances are that Homo sapiens, all of us, will be able to survive pandemics tomorrow. If we have weakened immune systems, and that weakened immune system comes from the simplest things that we read about on television and things. Oh, today the AQI, the air quality index, is very bad, so don't go out and play tennis, you might tell your young ones. Or today, you know, if you got asthma, don't go out. Now, when you're breathing in chemicals, you are taking them into your lungs and you are compromising yourself. So every single citizen that lives in a city that has poor air quality is going to be susceptible. It's not only those who have an asthma problem, or those who only have a heart problem, or those who are only pregnant. All of us are affected if we compromise our immune system, and particularly if we compromise with COVID-19 our lungs. This is one thing that we should know. The second thing is that, you know, if you look at the economic costs of this pandemic that has hit the whole world, I don't even think there are calculators or economists who know how to calculate what the loss is. The last person who got sick, somewhere sitting in Jumri Talaya, you don't even know how much damage was caused to him, either because the bread earner went, or the farm got destroyed, or a business got closed down, or a shop that never had the ability to survive for 2 months, the family got ruined. All these are national costs. These costs are things that we can and should avoid in the future. So, what one single lesson do we learn from this pandemic and from the floods that have come before? They've hit Pune, they've hit Bombay, they've hit every place that you can imagine, from Kerala to Leh to Kashmir. It is that the natural capital that we have, the natural capital that exists, and India is so blessed, these are infrastructures. These are not impediments to infrastructure. There's a very big misunderstanding. Like, of course we want dams, of course we want thermal plants, of course we want chemical complexes. We want these things because we have to have them in order to live a life of the kind that we are now living. But even your mother will tell you, or you might remember when you were very young, कि बेटा अच्छा लगता है तो कुछ सब्र करके खाओ, ज्यादा खाओगे तो पेट दर्द हो जाएगी, हजम नहीं होगा. तो अभी ये जो विकास के नाम में अभी विनाश थोपा जा रहा है, शायद इस कोविड एपिडेमिक के बाद एक सोचना चाहिए कि हम करें तो क्या करें. If you ask me, in just a minute or two, I would give you the problem and its solution for India's economy. One of the largest investments that India has ever made is in large dams. We have 4,000 large dams plus 4,400, 500, not counting all the coffer dams, not counting all the canals, not counting everything else. Now, a dam is only as good as its catchment, the catchment forest. जहाँ बारिश गिरती है, वहाँ से बारिश dam में आता है, it gets accumulated, post monsoon we can use it. But you know where the large dams exist? They exist in our forests and the aquifers that they feed. Those are the largest subsurface dams. They are the ones that feed lakhs and lakhs of wells on the basis of which our food grows. So when we build the dams and we don't look after the catchment forests, and we come into this issue of biodiversity now, then what we are actually doing is, it's like if you go to a dentist and your young daughter or your son gets orthodontia and perfect good teeth, but what's the use of the good teeth if the gums are rotten and the teeth fall out? So the relationship between the catchment area of a dam and the dam itself is just as tight as your blood and your lungs and your air or your teeth or your gums. You can't have one without the other. There is also the other issue now in terms of economics. Look at what's happened with the migrations. So at the tri-junction, Sanctuary Nature Foundation, we work at the tri-junction of biodiversity, economics, and climate change, which is coming as a spoiler for both. And what we would like to say right now is that the future does not rely, of course, in carbon energy. I mean, that in Pune itself, we've got some of the smartest, most active industrialists. We've got the finest brains working. And I believe that a city like Pune will actually show India how we can move forward, reserving the carbon energy for a smelter or for, the kind of heavy industry that cannot be done right now with solar energy. But why should my computer or my light or my car, why should it run on coal? Because that is where it comes from. The energy comes from there to build the car. The energy comes from there to run my lights, because it's all thermal energy. We have to redefine our lives. And I think we can do that when we talk in terms of, service before self. The fact is that even if we walk down the path of service without self, we find out कि जो कुदरत से टकराएगा वो तो मिट्टी में मिल जाएगा. So it's in our own interests. Let me not carry on for too long. I know that the time allotted for speakers is something like 20 minutes, but I'd like to leave some time for questions and answers if that is within.
No, we have sufficient time.
Okay.
I would love to hear about the meeting goes on till 7:30. So we would love to hear about your thoughts on.
Wonderful. Then I'll proceed, but I would still like very much that much of what I would like to communicate, if there are questions, it can be answered with those as well. But here is one thing which is complete and total. Environmental protection is patriotism in action. जब हम कहते हैं कि इस देश की धरती से हम तिलक करेंगे, ये धरती है बलिदान की, तो our army, navy, air force, look at Pune. I mean, the cantonments of Pune are green. I have seen the most in Pune. The process of making Pune, I'm using Pune as an example, but it could be Bombay, it could be Delhi, it could be Jabalpur, it could be anywhere, Guwahati. I am saying that if we regreen the city, not only will the real estate values go up, but health will go up. That means people will be at offices more often. That means people will spend less on health and more on the things that people would like to do, to buy and to use as a free market. So it's in our self-interest right now to protect the environment, but environmental protection has been misunderstood. Let's say somebody wants to build a dam somewhere and drown, let's say, a very, very vital valley. And we say there's biodiversity there. And the question is often asked, what is more important, jobs or a tiger here or a leopard here? And it has been misunderstood from post-independence that we are doing this in order to save a tiger. Ye save a tiger nahi hai. When we save the tiger, you save everything in that forest. In that forest is not only the tiger, but the tick on the back of the tiger. Not only that, but the deer, the wild boar, the birds, the bees. Just take one example, just the bees. Without the bees, India's agriculture will collapse. Our orchards won't run. The pollination will not take place. You can't go like the tea. When you go tea picking, you get the women picking bush by bush by bush. You can't go pollinating bush by bush by bush or flower by flower. This is, ये हमारे जंगल के माली हैं, ये वन के माली हैं. So biodiversity is critical to the survival of ecosystems. Ecosystems are critical to the economy of this country because everything runs on water. In Pune, we work with children and उनको 11-12 साल के बच्चों को हम कहते हैं कि जंगल नदी की माँ है. Without water, we feed, just the tiger habitats in India. Forget about all the others. The tiger habitats in India, these are feeding 600 rivers with water. Now, water we take for granted. But when somebody takes the water away, then suddenly one bottle we are ready to pay first 15 rupees, then 20 rupees. And if you're passing a desert, you'll pay 20 lakhs of rupees, if that means surviving. So the things that we take for granted today, COVID has proved that don't take it for granted. Don't imagine that what you do now you can continue to do, which is to say that the Mula Mutha River, for instance, at one time in the 30s and 35s, 40s, you could drink the water from there. I don't think anybody would be advised to do the same thing now. And the same way, what I would say is that the process of having open spaces is not just an aesthetic thing that there are some kids who can run around and play. Every open space in Pune is a large dam. How? Because it rains, you get 6 inches of water, it seeps into the ground. Next 1 hour, another lot of water comes in, it seeps into the ground. It is a catchment. These catchments supply the groundwater, it prevents flooding, it prevents disease, because when you have fresh water coming down, you're actually washing your city down. I could go on, but let's put it in a fairly simple, straightforward way. The issue for Pune and for Mumbai is that, do we want to live healthy lives? Do we want to live lives in which we earn and then we spend it in a hospital? Do we want to live lives where we can have our children free, not only health-wise in terms of our physicality, but even our mind? The psychological damage that is done to our children when they live in a city without open spaces is beyond measure. All doctors now say that, look, nature is something where when you go into nature, you begin to talk softer. In Bombay, for instance, when people drive by Marine Drive, I haven't seen them look left from their cars. I've actually stood for hours on end sometimes saying, where do these people look? They look at the sea. What is the sea? The sea is nothing but Kudrat, it's just, it's unfathomable. The manner in which your blood pressure comes down, your stress comes down, your breath becomes even, your head becomes calm. At the end of your journey, even unless, of course, you're in a hurry and you're stuck in traffic, you are a more balanced human being. I'd like very much to close my part of the communication by just saying this, that actually I have stopped talking to the Buddha party. My constituency is the Bacha party. The way I see it is that I don't want to just leave a better world for my children. I want to leave better children for our world as well, so they don't make the same mistakes. We have quite justifiably, Gandhiji helped us to move the British out because they were colonizing our country and taking all the wealth away and leaving us devastated. But do we want to colonize our children? Because we are actually right now colonizing their air, their water, their soils, their future, even their climate. In this situation, live, it doesn't matter. It's not that, it's affecting the elderly. Even this pandemic is, I'm 70 plus, So I would feel that environmental protection is patriotism in action. If we put 20 to 30 million people back to work to repair the catchment using nature-based solutions, it is the most economic, the most scientific, the most socially just way in which national development could go tomorrow. I won't end on a very happy note, but I will say this, that we've taken a wrong fork in our developmental ambitions. For instance, the glaciers are melting, not just the North and South Pole, but the Himalayan glaciers are melting, but we are investing billions of dollars we are taking in loans to build dams under those glaciers when the river run data has completely changed because the glaciers have melted. The temperature that has gone up is either sending us a flood or sometimes it's not sending us enough water. It's not just that. It's not just that. If you look at Sundarbans, the manner in which the damage to our economy that is taking place in the Sundarbans, the salinity is rising and migration has started northward. The migration which we saw in the last 3 months has compared to the migration that we had during independence. You know, when the migration from Pakistan and India, the exchange took place. The Syrian migration that we saw, which has devastated Syria, it has affected even the European Union. It has changed the attitudes of people across the world. Those migrations are infinitesimal. It is child's play compared to the migrations which are waiting, compared to the pandemics which are waiting. And we can avoid them by making people self-sufficient where they are, so that GDP doesn't just trickle down on people, but it bubbles up from people. So if we are able to do that, I think that the Rotarians have a duty. I think they have the capacity, they have the intelligence, they have the heart, they have the will, they have the duty to talk to this country and first of all, ये झगड़ा बंद करे. कोई environmentalist इसको बंद करता है, कोई उसको environmentalist को बंद करता है. We need to work together as a country because please take it from me, I'm not a medical doctor, but I do have a stethoscope and I do have a blood pressure machine and I am feeling the pulse of this country and I am telling you there is no water left in India. If tomorrow a politician wants to get votes, he'll have to steal the water from an industrialist or an industry. If he wants money from an industrialist and he wants to make sure that he can run his campaign, he'll have to steal water from a farmer. Our water tables are falling, the quality of water is falling, the air quality is going bad, and COVID has taught us that it can be fixed. I think Pune's skies are blue, Mumbai's nice, they're gray now, but they're gray with good quality rain. So I'd like to say that national development is more than just feeding somebody. That gentleman Mao Zedong said that you give a man a fish, you give him a meal, you teach him to fish, you give him a profession. I think that tomorrow's profession are those who will take past investments in dams, in roads, in all these infrastructures that we have, make them come back to life. This business of just destroying one infrastructure, which is forests, grasslands, wetlands, mangroves, the Himalayan glaciers, you can't destroy those infrastructures to build a road. To an extent you can, you must. But if you do too much of it, gadbad hogi, and this has been a monologue for long enough, I would be very happy, very, very happy to, I don't pretend that I have all the answers, but I would love a dialogue if it's possible, sir.
Sure. I think so. There are a couple of questions till now.
Yes.
So one is from Amita Manot. So what are the measures you will recommend most for conservation of nature?
The first measure I would say is, don't think that somebody else will solve the problem. I think the first conservation measure that we have to take is that whatever we do, don't look at what Gandhiji said about see that the poorest of the poor are benefited. You see whether the children will be benefited 40 years from today. So we need to repair our forests. We need to repair our wetlands. We need to see that forests like Bhimashankar, which is just south of Pune, that these forests are protected as infrastructures. If we recognize the value of that, then the process of repairing it, we don't have to plant trees. We have to protect these places and we have to make sure that people who live around our most valuable biodiversity vaults become the first beneficiaries. There's equitable distribution and there is the repair, and nature repairs itself. Any doctor, including the people, 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 doctors here will tell you that while we may treat you, your body has to come back and repair itself. The planet is no different. The Western Ghats are no different. The Himalaya are no different. So I would say that we should be able to encourage our politicians, our planners, our decision makers, that please get back and work on nature-based solutions. Return to nature its health. Nature will give you wo Punjabi muhna mein to the chappad phar ke, nature will give us all that we want, and it is the right way to go. Repair the ecosystems and do not plant on grasslands trees. Do not go into wetlands and fill them and build colonies, because those wetlands are the ones which control your flood and feed your things. So we have to recognize the value of it. My answer is never direct, but I hope I've been able to get across.
Yeah. Okay. So the another question from Pankaj Mehrotra. Himalayas, especially the glaciers, are future ecological disaster in making. There are brown and black glaciers in Himalaya today. How do we reverse this process, especially as a military footprint? Are we becoming endemic?
Well, I'd put it like this, that the glaciers and the poles, these are two things over which we have only one capacity. We have the capacity to harm them. The capacity not to harm them and to repair them is not like switching on a light or switching off a light. It's like I'll work with analogies that if your liver is damaged, your doctor tells you, okay, you may want a single malt, but you can't have a single malt because it'll hurt your liver and you'll go beyond the 75% damage and you will never be able to recover. You cannot go to the doctor and say, okay, instead of a single malt, I'll have rum or I'll have gin. We have to change what we are doing. The glaciers will only repair when our climate, which means our carbon emissions come down. The carbon emissions are coming down from the earlier solution we spoke about, which is to say, imagine 25 million people holding the water where it is, allowing it to percolate down. It can't happen without pulling atmospheric carbon down. You have no technological means to effectively pull the carbon down from the atmosphere. But every time a bird drops a seed and it turns into a 10-ton tree after X number of years, 50% of its dry weight is atmospheric carbon. It's called photosynthesis. So we have the solutions. We can make this happen. We can give jobs. The droughts can be contained. And actually, our economy will be vastly improved if our village economy improves, which was always what we said we wanted to do. I'm sorry, I may not be answering very specific, short, exact answers. Please ask again if you feel I've left out something.
Bittuji, sorry, I'm Pankaj Mehrotra. I
Go, Pankaj.
specifically have used a term called military footprint is becoming endemic in the Himalayas.
Yes,
If
yes.
we are able, if the 3 or 4 countries involved in this are careful, we can perhaps reduce the damage we are doing to the glaciers by reducing the military footprint in this vital area. Our
You know,
future
you are so
definitely
right.
depends on it.
You are absolutely and totally right. Like magic, it can repair. The thing is that there are so many things. There are so many things. Right now, the glacial melt. I have friends in the army. Some of them are actually there at Siachen right now. Forget the geopolitics of it for the moment. Warfare tomorrow itself, the armies in Pakistan and God knows, I hope not China and India, you know what the way in which tomorrow's attacks will be. Like Diwali में हम लोग rocket ऊपर भेजते हैं ना, and फट करके वो explosion आती है. The ice has become so latpat. It's not only the pollution, it's not only the frozen excreta, it's not only the chemicals that we are leaving behind there. I am saying that the ice itself has become so dangerous that more people are dying. If somebody from down there sends a rocket up and it bursts, you'll have an avalanche and we could lose 400 soldiers in one shot. You know, the process of fighting wars, climate change is going to change them. And yes, we are polluting our glaciers. We are destroying our glaciers. Those glaciers are not only at Siachen, but even if you go to the eastern Himalaya, we are absolutely destroying them. And on the other side of our border, China is actually fighting a water war with us already. They're diverting the waters down for their industry, and they are using the dams that they have built as walls of offense against India. Now these are diabolic things. I don't want to be some kind of prophet of doom, but I would say that diplomacy, talking, and seeing the self-interest, the COVID has told us how it is essential that we work as one planet, one work, one family together to at least fight this. Otherwise, both enemies and friends will die. So your glacier issue, you're right. There is a very heavy footprint. It's not only up in the Himalaya. Now the next footprint is going to be at Indira Point in the Nicobar Islands, where they are saying because China is making noises in the north, now in the south we want to have a whole all those ecosystems which breed the fish which we eat today, or rather the मैं तो vegetarian हूँ, मैं तो कुछ खाता ही नहीं हूँ, अंडा भी नहीं खाता हूँ, but the fact is that even those things, when we destroy the ecosystems of the oceans, millions of people will not get food, and we will be in such dire trouble right now that unless and until the armed forces are part of the planning process and they understand what the impact on our internal security is of a situation that could arise, which is quite akin to what we see in Syria, I think India's viability as a nation living 1.3 billion people on such a small piece of land could be affected. So it's the glaciers, it's the coasts, salinization, it's disease, it's all these things put together, and they do have a solution like the cut. I have hurt my arm. I have done nothing but put a splint on it. Now, the result of this splint is that I'm not using my arm badly and nature is healing it. In 2 weeks' time, I can actually move my hand about. I couldn't do that. The same way nature can fix glaciers, it'll come back, it'll take longer than you or I can do overnight, but our wetlands, our forests, our everything can come back to life again. We just have to use nature-based solutions, and we have to have respect for nature as an infrastructure, not an impediment to infrastructure and the economy.
Thank you, Bittuji.
Okay, the next question from Ashish. He's
Yes.
asking, are regulations the answer for many of the things what you have been talking?
I know. See, without regulations, nothing happens. You have a red light, there's a regulation ki जा नहीं सकता. लेकिन अगर आदमी drunk हो और green light में red चले या तो accident तो होएगा ही. So I'm saying regulations are essential, but regulations are only as good as their implementation. Now, if you, for instance, say that you have to wear a mask, and if Trump says, मैं mask पहनूंगा ही नहीं, so then what can you do? I mean, if the implementation of normal regulation is not there, if you take, for instance, groundwater, some of you might know this, but I can assure you that because of people like us who've said that, look, you cannot pollute your aquifers, you cannot pollute your rivers, you must take your water and treat it and put it back. You know what is being done by people? They're taking high pressure pumps and pushing this water down into our aquifers at 3,000 meters down, because it's cheaper to do that than to have a effluent treatment plant. So if we don't value it, if we don't implement it, if I can bribe my way into avoiding doing something that costs my shareholder, the value will come down by 2%. तो फिर बोलो ही राम, जो कुदरत से टकराएगा मिट्टी में मिल जाएगा, and I don't want to मिट्टी में मिलो and before my time. I want my children to be happy. I want business to flourish. I want to see the smile that I'm seeing on your face right now.
So another follow-on question from Ashish is, does deglobalization is the answer, given that in globalized world, everyone is looking at other country to do it? Is the deglobalization is the answer?
I don't think deglobalization by design is the answer. That you suddenly put a regulation and you put a wall around your country, that won't work. Because as you know, COVID is a globalized problem. Climate change is a globalized problem. If we start living in silos, so we'll die in silos. We have to put our hands across the oceans, and we have to cooperate, and we have to show our self-interest. Like India today can pull down so much carbon from the atmosphere because all we need to do is our 4,000 large dams. If we repair the catchments and we pull the carbon down, we will have 100 crore people who are climate warriors. So I believe that the globalization need not always be physical. I don't have to go to America to become a techie. I can do that from Bangalore. But at the same time, I believe that we must think global and we must act local. It's such a cliche, but I think we should set a good example. I'm a teacher in and the Bacha party will follow us.
Sure. There's another question from President Ajay. Conserving and protecting the environment is almost the most urgent and important task everyone is talking about today. And there is a lot of effort being made by governments and other agencies, but they don't seem to be effective. So how do we make them more effective? And other question follow on by President Ajay is, what is your experience working with children? What are your learning that can be used to make adults more aware and concerned about the environment? So there are two questions.
I would put it like this, that let me start with the children. Working with the children has saved my life. My name is Bittu Sahgal, but I used to be called Sahgal for a very long time क्योंकि मुझे गुस्सा आता था. अरे यार ये देख सकते हो कि ये खराब है, ये क्यों कर रहे हो? Why are you doing this thing? So working with the children, the best thing is that there is a certain lack of cynicism and there is a palpable hope. I have received hundreds of letters when I've gone out and said, this was long before the BJP government and things. I'm talking about Baba Adam ke zamane mein, where they say, Bittu uncle, don't worry. I wrote to the Prime Minister. He came back. He said the tiger will be safe. All the problems are over. Now that kind of utsaha, that kind of feeling, that kind of belief that if you do the right thing, the right result will come, we have become cynical. And as we've grown older, we were all wild animals. When a child comes out from a mother's womb, that child is a wild animal, just like a monkey or like a tiger or like an elephant or like a bear. But we have socialized nature out of the life of that child. So I believe that that would be the best thing that we can do, is leave better children for our planet and for the future. Can you repeat the first question for me? What was the thing, sir?
So, so the question was primarily that everyone is talking about protecting and conserving the environment, and a lot of agencies have been doing a lot of work, but they don't seem to be working. So how do we make them more effective?
We are a democracy, and in democracy you can be sure log joke karte hain ki if you put 10 Indians in a room, you'll have 43 arguments. So the fact of the matter is that diversity is very welcome, but if we actually create a small bolus of people who are in the room. I have served on the ministry's infrastructure expert committees for 18 years. And all we said was the CRZ rules, that there is climate change coming up. Please make sure that we have a 500-meter thing, because if a tidal wave comes, it will wipe it out, etc., etc. But the implementation was not done. So to that extent, there's a frustration that we have the rule, but it's not being implemented. Today, we can see that the result of that is just a question of one single factor. The lack of implementation is because each one of us thinks somebody else is going to do the job. That अगर हम advice देने के लिए बहुत अच्छे हैं कि आप ऐसा करो, आप वैसा करो, but we ourselves believe मेरा काम नहीं है, I am an engineer. ये मेरा काम नहीं है, I am a politician. ये मेरा काम नहीं है, I am a accountant. I'm saying that the word environmentalism, I would actually like it to be wiped out from the dictionary. There's no need for environmentalists. Each one of us is an environmentalist, the way that each one of us is a parent. You don't have a legislation for parents that you have to, sort of do X, Y, Z. I believe the solutions will come and the implementation will come. I think post-COVID, first of all, profits are going to fall. If you go around the world today, those people who have been doing the most damage are the ones which are closing down. The richest companies in the world are who? The oil, coal, gas guys. They are all almost on a drip right now. So they are going into reserve banks, they are going into central banks in America, they are going everywhere and saying, "Bhai, हमको rescue करो." अभी क्यों रेस्क्यू करो भाई? तुम प्रॉफिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो तो तुम you work on profit. So when we have coteries that can control politics, then we will be in a position where the rules won't be followed and democracy becomes undermined. But I'm not talking about right and wrong. This is a good guy, that's a bad guy. या इस हमाम में हम सब दंगे. But at least इस हमाम में हम देख लें तो पानी ज्यादा गर्म ना हो, ज्यादा ठंडा ना हो. Let's be comfortable, you know. I believe COVID will come as a message and we will repair a lot of things. I believe that if I was the Prime Minister today, I know my first problem is that I have too much unemployment in rural India. I know the solution. Take those people, put them to work, repair the catchments of large dams, repair the forests, the rain will fall, they'll feed the aquifers, food production will go up, carbon will come down. It's literally a 90-second solution, but it's a 90-year action to solve it.
Sure. Okay. There is a question from Ramesh More. In your opinion, has COVID lockdown helped in improving the environment?
Um, yes, of course it has helped. Look, if you know, but it has not permanently helped. Let me qualify
Yeah.
it. I know for a fact that if you looked at Marine Drive when the lockdown was lifted, the traffic jams were there, challans were being done. People feel that they are immune, to this. So I would say that post COVID, what you see right now are blue skies. You can see 5 feet into the Jamuna at Harki Pauri. If you go to Mula Mutha, even that river, for whatever it is worth, will be a little bit cleaner. I don't know whether is there a road been built by the way now or no? Mula
Yeah,
Mutha. Huh?
there are.
Oh wow.
There are bridges.
A bridge? No. But on the bed of the Mula Mutha, they were planning to build a road.
No, not yet as of
On
Okay,
now.
the
good. Because those things, look, I would put it like this. I believe that the solutions will be there and they will not come from environmentalists. The same people who have caused the problem will have to look at it through a different prism and make money doing different things, bringing water back, bringing forests back, bringing more employment, getting less, heavy industry. Because when we are exporting coal, we are not exporting coal, we are exporting water. So we have to redefine ourselves, and for that, what I have told you, I'm just a little guy who climbed up a hill, he climbed up a tree, and I saw something like a scout. I have to come back and get the big boys sitting in parliament, sitting at FICCI, sitting at, all the big boardrooms. They are the ones who will have to fix it. I believe they can if they use nature as an ally and don't declare war on nature. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, okay. So there's a question from Ajay Chitnis, who is also Vice President of Indian Maritime Foundation.
Wonderful.
So he said that his question is, we are most concerned about the marine environment, while we have great people like you to promote biodiversity. Uh, we need many people to promote this. How do we address this situation?
Ajay bhai, we have started addressing it. Here is my hand. I would shake it and I would say to you, without our hands being shook, not one hand, but 10 hands, we won't be able to do anything. On the maritime front, let me tell you this, that right now, build a port north of Mumbai. Now, the way I would see it is that we are in a state of war. Our existing ports, sir, I am telling you something, our dry docks are at sea level. Our jetties are at sea level. Our storages are at sea level. We know the sea levels are going to rise. We know that every 3 to 4 years you're going to have sea surges. We should be raising our infrastructure. The process of raising our infrastructure, which is going to support, because the ships will float no matter how high the sea goes, but your go downs won't, your dry docks won't. We need huge investments to make our existing maritime infrastructure future ready. That is development tomorrow. That is where our GDP should come from. That is what all the other countries are doing. While what we are doing is we are falling for the trap of borrowing money from abroad, building stranded assets even before they have been completed. I'm sorry, I am habitual, without any malice telling the truth, man. I have no angle. I'm just telling you that this is what it is.
I agree with you, but what I was saying is that we need a lot of people to talk about this. Unfortunately, we don't have a constituency, a marine constituency, who can promote this thing. You said about Marine Drive, it looks so nice when you pass Marine Drive, the sea on your left. But what is under the water? All the effluent of Bombay is going under that. It's terrible. Someone said in 2050 there'll be more plastic in the water than fish.
That is true. So that is
Okay.
completely true, sir. And I'll tell you this: that as far as Marine Drive is concerned, let me give you one of the closely held secrets of Marine Drive. In Mumbai, between the governor's Raj Bhavan and Chowpatty, every single day, 14 to 18 dolphins come. Yes, they're coming closer because there's less boats, there's less pollution, there's less noise. But they are alive. I have got corals there. I have got nudibranchs there. I have seen starfish there. I've seen octopus there. Not only there, of course, in the cantonment area of Mumbai, but even as you go in Dadar beach, you've got them there. So I'm saying this marine life of Mumbai is fantastic. We have got such beautiful, beautiful opportunities. There are close to 5 million birds in Thane Creek alone. And if it were not for those mangroves upon which these birds depend, the Bombay port would be in such deep trouble because the silt would make it difficult for deep draft ships to come. So the maritime protection is actually the protection of our mother. We all came from the sea, and I would like to promise you that if you take half a step, I will be 5 steps with you to make sure that working with people interested in maritime futures, we will bring the whole country to work with you on this. It is very, very vital what you've just said.
Sure. So another question from Pramod Bhalla. So will you agree that it is important to live close to nature, or really appreciate its role in our life? I feel living in concrete forest and talking about nature is funny. So what's your what's your
I entirely agree with you. In fact, almost every weekend I'm telling my wife that, look, there are so many places, why don't we go and live there? But hota nahi hai. The fact is that we are also migrants like that.
Yeah.
But here is what I would like to say to Pune and to Bangalore, for instance. You were garden cities. It is very easy. You know, the largest in Mumbai, let me come back to Mumbai. The largest open space in Mumbai outside of the national park is our rooftop, which we are not using. That rooftop can be greened, we can grow food on it, we can generate power from it. So far we haven't done it because कोई गरीब के गांव को डुबा दो, वहां से एक डैम बना दो, electricity खींच लो और मौज करो. वो जमाना गया. I'm saying that we should really knit together the way we do in times of war, because this is a war. This is a war we have declared on nature, and we won't win it. But it is not something that we must wake up in the morning and say, "Hi, मेरी किस्मत दुनिया को बचानी है, मुझे कल." ऐसा करेंगे तो मेरी सूरत देख के फूल भी मुरझा जाएंगे. So we should be able to do this nicely. We should be able to change our economic policies, adapt. Charles Darwin said one thing which is very, very vital for the corporate sector. The strongest intelligence is adaptable. Any CEO of any company will say, if you don't adapt, you will become like Kodachrome, or you will become, it's gone. Digital thing has wiped out Kodachrome. So if you don't adapt to the new realities of the world, which is to say, जो कुदरत से टकराएगा मिट्टी में मिल जाएगा, I'm saying that the share values will fall. Even real estate, if you build 30-story buildings but you don't have power, you can't get water up, who will buy the flats on top, the penthouse? So I'm saying we have very good opportunity. I want to end on a very positive note. Right now, we have not gone beyond the point of no return. If India, with its past history and its attitudes to nature, can teach the whole world, we can become world leaders. But everybody thinks somebody environmentalists are part of the problem very often. We should all accept that we can solve the problem.
Okay. So Sunil has asked a question saying that what people can contribute? What can people contribute in smallest way?
Can I request the permission to extend the meeting by 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, please, I'm honored. I'm very happy. I would put it like this: that charity begins at home. The first thing I would like to suggest is that don't wait to do something far away from you, and don't wait to do something very big. Start with the smallest of small things. If we start doing the small things at home, we set a good example. Please believe me, like those people who are very religious, they go to the mandir and they promise this and they promise that. But it's not that they have to live in the mandir. So I'm saying, Pujari lives in the mandir. So call the environmentalist Pujari for the moment. That is all he does. But other people run. The Pujari has to take a bus. So bus conductor must be there. Somebody has to drive a cycle. So we have to live with the diversity of the world around us. And I believe that the correct way out is for us to do what we can do. And I tell the children this, If you're a poet, write poetry. If you're a writer, you write your articles. If you're a businessman, use your influence. Your money is less important than your influence. If you're a politician, please think about your legacy for tomorrow and start doing things that will improve the lives of people later on. If this thing, then the engineers and the artists and everybody will get together and do the right thing, because there's only one road to survival, and that is to escape climate change. If you don't do that, please believe me. And no one person can do that. Like a monoculture, we say diversity. If you had only environmentalists in the world, I think the world will die faster, because they don't know how to do anything really very much. I need the engineers, I need the civil engineers, I need the politicians.
What I meant was, this is Sunil,
Yes.
that, as lay people, what are one or two good things we can do on a daily basis to help the environment? It's like drops will make an ocean. So
Correct.
a guy living in the city, what can I do to contribute in the smallest possible way to save the environment?
So here I would give you 2 or 3 things, when I would qualify what I say by saying of us is a different person. So it's not, it will probably 80 to 100% should do just one thing. So in this building where we live in Mumbai, for instance, there is a person who has taken it upon themselves to make sure that they walk around the building and see to it that we don't have any plastic around. Whenever anybody comes to deliver something, we say, okay, you take your plastic back. Now, that is only one thing that person, plastic has become that person's life. There is another person who actually lives in North Mumbai, whose entire life is free of cost. If you have a dripping tap, he will come and fix the tap. He's not a plumber. He's just a 64-year-old man who have said that this is my job in life, to fix the tap. Now, in your house, for instance, here is what I tell my grandchildren. I said, when you brush your teeth, you should not be able to, or wash your hand, don't hear the water. You have a small trickle of water, that's more than enough. In the process of doing that, it may be only 2 liters of water that my grandson has saved. But imagine 1 million grandsons, and suddenly you don't need an extra dam. Extrapolate that. I want for Pune wider footpaths. For Pune, I would like, if you have influence with the municipal corporation or with people, fight for your green spaces. If it's Fraser Slater Road, Pune mein jo hai, if it has, fight to protect that, because every tree is an air conditioner. It's a dust collector. It helps asthmatics. It lowers the temperature. So each person, somebody will protect trees, somebody will protect water, and in your own home, set the example on any one thing. Don't overbite. Try to do what you can do, and then walk across the line. And just like an addiction, you do one thing, somebody sees you, 3 more people do it, and you do one thing right, you say, I will do this. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed that as individuals, we feel unempowered, but individually we are causing the problem. So if we start solving it, please don't think ki mera kya hai, main ye karunga to kya farak padega. No, it makes a difference, because you become the flag bearer, the torch bearer, whatever it is. Use a non-toxic paint on your walls the next time you paint your walls. Instead of you buying something new, say, okay, look, I can repair it. पुराने ज़मानों में जूतों को भी हम So go back to the future. Things that your grandmother would recognize, worship those. Things that she wouldn't recognize, say, do I really need it? Anyway, I'm going on too much.
Sure. So I think so. Very similar question was from Ruma.
Let this be the last question.
Yeah. Okay. So I would like you to tell us 2 specific things we can teach our children living in cities to make them more responsible towards nature. So very similar to earlier question, but yeah, very specific to a children.
Yes. I'm sorry, I got disturbed by somebody who was coming by. Can you please repeat that last question just a little bit?
So very similar to earlier questions, but it is very, what can we teach our children to make them more responsible towards nature?
So the best thing that we can teach our children is by setting a good example, as I said. And I would like to actually, from my 40 years of experience, tell you that actually we are running an adult literacy program for the environment, where the children are teaching the adults. why are you spitting on the road? Why are you throwing a cigarette? Why are you doing this? So if the parent loves the child, then the parent will not do the wrong thing. For instance, for our children, if they are asking for something and you give them a sense of values that says, look, when you have this, this is the kind of toxic pollution that you're doing. This is not a good idea for you to do it. The child will listen. But if you tomorrow use the same thing, the child will become like that. I think the best thing we can do for our children is to set the right example. And again, like I mentioned for adults, it's a different variety of things that children need to do. All children can't do one thing. Hairbrush, paint brushes. They're made from. I'm telling you something that it was children that we worked with in Delhi that made sure that I'm a Punjabi again, I'm saying, so I can talk about Punjabis without anybody taking offense. The parents would go out पटाखे चलाने के लिए, मैं बच्चों के लिए कर रहा हूँ. अभी बच्चों ने खुद ही कहा कि हमें पटाखे नहीं चाहिए, it causes pollution. My grandfather is coughing, I don't want to have any. We actually stopped the sale of fireworks has dropped by 85%. So children can be agents of change, and the things which I tell an adult will be misunderstood. But when the children have their values and they say कि पापा ऐसा नहीं करना, नहीं तो मैं क्या करूँगा कल जाके. My God, I'm ready to die for my children. I will not do this. Of course I will. I think we just have to set the right example.
Okay, thank you, Bittuji. Now I request Vice President Uday to propose a vote of thanks, please.
Yeah, Mr. Sahgal,
Yes.
you know, we now truly understand why
Yes.
economy is the wholly owned subsidiary of environment. By one of your beautiful film on our planet, particularly about children, where you have given a beautiful definition of Bhagwan, which is called BH for Bhumi,
Right.
for Gagan, V for Vayu, and N
Yes.
for Neer. I think it's a beautiful saying which you have said that. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Pune Central, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to you for sharing your knowledge and experience and your valuable time. Thank you, Mr. Sahgal. It was really enlightened, and we will never forget, and we will always consider by that the economy is only own subsidiary of the environment. This is a new definition you have taught us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uday bhai. Thank you very much. I have greatly enjoyed this interaction and it makes me stronger. Thank you very much.
Okay, so, dear Bittuji, on behalf of all the members of our club, we would like to thank you once again for such a thought-provoking dialogue with us. And we would like now to, present you a small citation certificate of our appreciation. Please accept that.
Wonderful.
We will send one to you in a hard copy later on, but yeah. So that's.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to, before you close, I'd like to make an offer.
Yeah.
Every single person who is a Rotarian, I would like to give a complimentary subscription to the digital subscription now, because the print post office bhejta hi nahi hai. From January up till June, you can just look at it on your phone or your Apple desktop or something. So all you need to do is to send us the name and the email ID, and we will send that. We'll ask you to register online, and we'll take care of that. It's just a way of saying that मैंने कहा ना ताली दो हाथ से बजती है. So here are the things. That is our Gita. That is our Bible. That's everything. कुदरत को बचाना है और हम लोग जिएंगे और जीने देंगे. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.